So this is an analysis of Itauma versus Filip Hrgović. So let's give you that boxing philosophy perspective, and we're going to look at many different ideas. So the first idea we're going to look at is speed. So Filip Hrgović, let's start with him. He has speed. His right hand against Daniel Dubois, it was fast, and at the beginning of the fight, it was particularly vicious. He also threw quick, shorter punches when he fought David Adelaide. Similar to Riddick Bowe, the great Riddick Bowe, Filip Hrgović, he can shorten up his punches and throw a significant amount. So Filip Hrgović has some speed, and this is kind of generated through the nature of how he throws some of his punches. However, Itauma, I believe, has the edge in this area. Itauma doesn't shorten up his punches necessarily. The majority of his punches, they're fast and they're hard. But when he goes through the phases, the speed and the power is noticeable. Now, the Dillian Whyte fight was impeccable with a quick succession of phases. He went to phase 1, to phase 2, to phase 3, etc. And his fast punches are mostly introduced through many different phases, so fast foot feints and fast hand feints. So I would say when we're looking at the speed of both of these fighters, both fighters have speed, but Itauma, I believe, is slightly faster. However, we shouldn't underestimate Filip Hrgovic's speed. And speed, remember, is not just how fast you punch, it is how quickly you can create the moment to punch. Okay, so now before I move on to the next idea, I just want to quickly announce something, and I just want to state, check out my free chapter. Go to the comments, click the link, and you can get the chapter sent straight to your email. If you don't receive it, make sure you check your spam or your junk folder. So with that being said, let's move on to the next idea, which is power. Now, if you look at both of them visually, or when I look at both of them visually, I kind of feel like Filip Hrgović looks more powerful. But let's look at the evidence. Hrgović landed about 30 right hands flush on Daniel Dubois' chin. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic, but it didn't seem to have no real effect. It didn't seem to really hurt Daniel Dubois significantly. Now, there's some context here. Daniel Dubois has a great chin. But these type of punches, they should have registered him unconscious. Let's be real here. When Filip Hrgović fought Joy Joyce, he hit him with everything. But Joy Joyce remained on his feet. And the context here is that both men have a resume of having punch durability. But still, he didn't knock Joy Joyce down. And again, he didn't put a significant physical dent into Joy Joyce. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have power, but it suggests that he may not be a power puncher. He put David Adelaide on the canvas, but he could not finish. However, Dave Allen, and this is really weird because Dave Allen has a good chin, but he got the job done in 3 rounds. The difference here is that Hrgović wasn't shortening up his punches, he was throwing his punches with more power. So my ultimate read on Hrgović is that it's good power, but not a power puncher. He punches hard, he can knock you out, he can knock you down, but he's not a power puncher. So let's look at the case of Itauma. Dillian Whyte has a good chin, but maybe not a great chin. He has been stopped by AJ. I think that was in round 8. Vacant, is that a 4th round knockout? And Tyson Fury, that was a right uppercut, I believe, in round 6. Itauma stopped Dillian Whyte in round 1. It was a vicious, impeccable performance despite the variables. Yes, there was variables. Now, Franklin had a very good chin. He took big shots in his resume against Dillian Whyte, and he went the distance with AJ. So he went the distance with Dillian Whyte and AJ, and he took some big shots. But Itauma stopped him for the first time, and he stopped him within 5 rounds. Moses' finishes are not typically one-punch knockouts. He goes through the phases. It's like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Then he gets to finish, with the exception of the Franklin fight, because what happened there, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, Franklin goes into the inside, and then Itauma landed a left uppercut from the southpaw position. This leads me to believe that Itauma punches hard, may not necessarily be the hardest power puncher, but he definitely has power. So when we compare them, I think Itauma has an edge in this department. And it's important to remember that power is not always one punch. Sometimes destruction comes through accumulation, timing, and relentless phases. And then the next idea is the jab. I think Hrgovic has a good jab, very good jab, and he uses it a lot. Against Dubois, perhaps he did not use it enough in the later part of the fight. In his recent fights, Filip Hrgović is developing other parts of his game. He's getting in the pocket, but his jab is sharp and he fights long and he can control the distance with the jab. I think he's being less dependent on his jab now. I think earlier he used to be predominantly everything behind the jab, but I think now he likes to shorten up his punches and throw more accumulation of punches. It's not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing. It's just a thing. So it's a different form of identity, but Filip Hrgović definitely does rely on his jab or can rely on his jab. Now, Moses has a good jab and he has a southpaw jab. He uses feints more and counters with the jab more. So he counters with that southpaw jab. Moses controls the distance with the jab and the feint, and then he moves in. So he feints, hits you with the jab. Sometimes he hits you with the jab, then puts the straight left to the body. But there's always a lot of feints going on. So in a sense, when we look at both of them from this context, they both have good jabs. Hrgovic perhaps uses his more, but I sense he will struggle with Itauma's southpaw jab, especially if Itauma is able to do the counter jab and able to feint effectively. So I give a slight edge to Itauma winning the jab battle, primarily because of his southpaw position, because Filip Hrgović has a consistent jab. But I think the length of Filip Hrgovic's jab is longer, I think. And this is a very important area for him to make this competitive and to win the fight. It is important to remember, we've not seen enough of Itauma's jab to really assess it properly. And the jab may look simple, but in elite boxing, it decides distance, rhythm, and who gets to control the conversation. And then the next idea is stamina. Now, this is a really interesting one. It's a really interesting one because both are well-conditioned athletes. And let's be honest, in professional boxing at the elite level, that's what they should be. But according to Abel Sanchez, who is Filip Hrgovic's trainer, and that's now been confirmed, which is a good thing for him, Filip Hrgovic is an amazing runner. He has amazing endurance when it comes to running. So Hrgovic, when he is in shape, that's the caveat, and he should be in great shape for this fight, has a great engine. Let's look at this. So if you look at his fights against Dave Adelaide, he threw 510 punches over 10 rounds, I believe. Against Dave Allen, he threw 168 punches over 3 rounds. So for Hrgovic, his volume is his strength. And remember, he's a big, he's a big man. He might not be a big puncher, but he is a big man. But for Itauma, amazingly, he throws more punches. He averages 60 punches a round. So in this sense, they both have amazing stamina. They are both exceptional. They are both exceptional in this area. Hrgovic, when he is in shape, has elite conditioning. Itauma so far is always in tremendous shape. The caveat here, you could argue, is that Filip Hrgovic has fought higher levels of opponents. So you might be able to make an argument based on the anecdotal information from Abel Sanchez and based on the high volume against better opposition, that maybe you can make an argument that Filip Hrgovic may edge this. He may edge it, but I'm not sure. And it's important to remember that conditioning is the invisible weapon. When technique gets tired, fitness describes what survives. And then the next idea is weight. Weight is so important, particularly for heavyweight boxers. Certain boxers, they can stay at the same weight. Evander Holyfield in his prime, he's like 215 to 217. That's his thing. That's how he's coming. And those, that 215 to 217, when he comes in 217, those pounds, there's intent behind those pounds. He's coming with extra strength. It's very intentional. He was an elite conditioned athlete. Where Riddick Bowe, another great fighter, his weight would fluctuate. He would go anywhere from 235 pounds. That's what he was when he fought Evander Holyfield, and he was absolutely sensational that night, to 280 pounds. So different fighters fluctuate. Some fighters stay consistent at a similar weight and others fluctuate. So what is the weight of these heavyweights? Let's first start with Hrgovic. against Joe Joyce, which is a 10-round decision, he was 250 pounds. 250 pounds. That's heavy for him. Against David Adelaide, 10-round decision, he was 241 pounds. And against Dave Allen, he was 248 pounds. Now, I think the David Adelaide performance was really good because there was lots of punches and there was good foot movement. So for me, if Hrgovic comes in at 241 pounds, that's promising. It shows good conditioning, fast reflexes. If he comes in over 250 pounds, that will probably mean he'll have slower feet, harder punches, but potentially be more durable. It's important to remember the fight against Joe Joyce, he had a very small fight camp because he came in as a replacement because Dillian Whyte was injured. So it's important to remember that context. So I'm looking for him to come around the 240s. So let's cover Moses Itauma's weight. Against Mike Balagon, he was 254 pounds. Against Dillian Whyte, he was 245 pounds. And then against Jermaine Franklin, he was 242 pounds. So there are two variations here. Anything under 242 pounds, and there is a focus from my perspective, from an outsider looking in, on reflexes, foot speed, and maybe more punches. If Moses Itauma comes in over 250 pounds, that could mean an increased punch durability to deal with body shots, headshots, etc. Maybe some more power, and maybe looking to take a more dominant position. Maybe he's looking to move less and be more dominant in the center. It's important to remember that when it comes to weight is not just a number on the scales. It can reveal the strategy a fighter intends to bring to the ring. And then the next idea, which is so essential, is footwork. Again, let's start with Hrgovic. Hrgovic has good footwork for a big and tall man. Remember, Hrgovic has an amateur pedigree. At times, I would say he showed some good footwork against Daniel Dubois, but it wasn't consistent. But there were times when he would show good movement against Daniel Dubois. Now, against Adelaide, he wasn't moving as much. He was pressuring. So he was putting on front foot pressure, which is a different type of footwork, but he did do that effectively. There was also some decent footwork against Joe Joyce, but the context is important because it was footwork mixed with going to the ropes. I suggest that going to the ropes against Moses Itauma may be very, very dangerous. But Hrgovic has decent to good footwork. So from a scale of 1 to 10, you might say 7, maybe an 8. So he has good footwork. And I think under Ronnie Shields, maybe you could make an argument that he had more of a focus on his footwork when he was under the tutelage of Ronnie Shields, but Abel Sanchez is also a very good trainer, but the footwork seems to be different now. He's more front foot pressure footwork. Now, when it comes to Moses Itauma, he has, I believe, some of the best footwork I've ever seen, and it's subtle, but it's effective. First of all, he is out of range very quickly, then very quickly in range. It's nearly impossible to judge it. The Franklin fight, again, I believe, showed that great footwork. He was outside, then quickly inside. And when you mix that with the feints and the southpaw position, it becomes very difficult. I mean, you could ask the question, and maybe it's a bit audacious, but you could ask the question, does Moses Itauma have better footwork than Usyk? And I've seen this, some people have stated this in the YouTube universe, so to speak, that Moses Itauma has like the footwork of a middleweight. And I think I might concur with that. His footwork is exceptional. Of course, we have to ask the question, will he be able to maintain that immaculate footwork and the speed of foot if the fight goes into the second half? That is a genuine question. It's a good question. And Saturday night might provide the answer to that question. But I think to summarize this part, Hrgovic has decent to good footwork, but Moses has exceptional footwork. So I think Moses is elite in this category, and this is one of the categories that he just wins hands down. And then the final idea is confidence. Confidence. So important for a fighter to be confident. But there's a scale. there's a scale from 1 to 10 or perhaps 1 to 100. And then you can be underconfident, which can hurt your performance. But can you be overconfident? And does overconfidence help your performance or does it hinder your performance? Let's talk about Filip Hrgović. I think Filip Hrgović is genuinely a very confident boxer. He comes out and he comes to dominate. That's the Hrgović that I mostly see. His last fight, he was full of confidence against Dave Allen. He came out, he took a dominant stance. He started, the one thing I like about Filip Hrgović is his accuracy. He lands the jab and then he lands the straight right straight away. His backhand, he doesn't waste time getting his backhand into the play. And there's something about the timing and accuracy of his backhand that is really effective. It's really hard to deal with Hrgovic's backhand. He's very accurate with it. And this is going to be a new puzzle for Itauma. I don't think he's dealt with it or seen a backhand like Filip Hrgović before. But like I said, Filip Hrgović was very confident against Dave Allen and he did the job. He was perhaps overconfident against Daniel Dubois. I think that overconfidence was a combination of being a confident person, but also having that experience of allegedly beating up Daniel Dubois in sparring or getting the better of Daniel Dubois in sparring. He was clearly overconfident, I think, in that performance. And I think he thought he was going to end that fight early. And when Daniel Dubois, who has a very good chin, Daniel Dubois has good durability, when he took the punches and he started to show his pedigree, because Daniel Dubois has good foot movement, underrated foot movement, a Sonny Liston type jab, and a very strong backhand, and good fighting inside the pocket. He's really developed that with his trainer in a very effective manner. So again, he showed the overconfidence against Dubois, was very confident against Dave Allen. In the Adelaide fight, again, he had that confidence, taking the front foot, initiating, throwing lots of punches. So what does that confidence do? It gives him the center of the ring. It enables him to throw lots of punches. And he's very confident in his punch resistance as well. He believes in his chin. Now, against Joe Joyce, he started very confidently. He did start very confidently, but I felt that at times his confidence was being tested. But in fairness to Filip Hrgović, he passed that test, because it's important to remember the context of that fight. He took that fight on late notice with a new trainer. There was a lot of danger in Filip Hrgović taking that fight. And again, it shows his confidence in taking that fight. With regards to Itauma, he is a supremely confident heavyweight. And it's obvious to know why. First, he has the psychology of an undefeated professional fighter. So an undefeated professional fighter will naturally have confidence. But I also think his confidence comes from, from what we're hearing, is that when he was in his teens, he was beating up grown men. So he's developed this confidence within the gyms where he's, fought, he sparred elite boxers and he's done very well. So he's got confidence from that. He's got confidence from having an elite team. And then he's got confidence with putting on these great performances. The Dillian Whyte performance, that was a very confident performance. The Franklin, I think, was an exceptional performance, given Franklin's resume, given Franklin's ring IQ, and given Franklin's experience. So again, Itauma, he has supreme confidence. So what we have here is we have Filip Hrgović, who's naturally a confident fighter, very confident fighter, but has had the loss, which you would think would have affected his confidence, but he's been rebuilding very well under Abel Sanchez. So he's still very confident, but he's got that blemish on his record. But Itauma is still undefeated. So you would think they're both very confident. But when you look at the scale, if you go from 1 to 10, I think Filip Hrgović was a 10 before the Daniel Dubois fight. He probably went down to like a 7 or maybe a 6. But I think through his successful rebuilding, I think you can put him at an 8 or possibly a 9. But I think Itauma is a solid 10. And I think the crucial question for Itauma is, yes, he has the confidence, and confidence is important for great performances, but it's important that he doesn't go down the avenue of being overconfident. And it's important to remember that confidence is powerful when it has never been broken. But the real test is what remains when somebody finally challenges it. Quick announcement, I have a free chapter from my boxing book. So click the link below to visit the landing page and get your free chapter. Remember to check your spam/junk folder if you don't receive it. Also, let me know what you think. Constructive feedback is always welcome.